Hello everyone, this is Axton here, and I wanted to share a Slam-Ara build I made, basically focusing entirely on Phase Slam, because I tried using this kind of a build before, and I don't look anything up. It's all about agency and making my own stuff, but this seems to be like a lot of fun, and I don't know if it's easy to pick up naturally, so I thought I'd share this on YouTube for anyone else who was frustrated like me, who wanted to use Phase Slam a lot, but wasn't really able to in a constructive or effective way on Mayhem 11. So this is a Mayhem 11 build, and let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about what we have as a build. First off, I just have a couple of guns. These are mostly used for just the anoint. I have an engulfing tritifier that I found recently. Gives me slam damage increased by 300%. It's pretty good just for the anoint, though. You don't really need to worry about what kind of gun it is. So you just find the anoint, and if it's a gun you can agree with, just slap it in there. This one's kind of more important, but I think it could be better if I was using a Cryo Butcher. You might notice I have one. I just don't have it anointed yet with this anoint. But after using the Phase Slam, weapon damage is increased by 300%. This is the most bang for your buck to me for that kind of a bonus, but the reload speed, being even as short as it is, can still sometimes make it feel like you're not getting as much DPS as possible. The Clockwork Res is just an option. I have it here because I play with my wife all the time, and this is just so that I can res her from a distance without having to stop and hold down the res button. And this is a Plague Bearer. I'm using it mostly for the anoint as well, because I also switch from phase slam to phase flare on occasion for certain bosses. So I just have a heavy weapon here with phase flare anoint. That's orb damage is increased by 200%, so the phase flare does more damage. So it's entirely for the phase flare whether I use this gun or not. Now my original idea was to use the Frozen Heart, because when you deplete the shield, it releases a Cryo Nova, does a lot of damage, and it'll heal you for the damage you've done. Now 30% of 74,000 damage is pretty much it's a good average amount of health. But also, as the very special anoint, when you start your action skill, it activates any effects that trigger on shield break or fill. So now whenever I use my action skill, it'll release a Cryo Nova, whether my shield breaks or not. So I'm always healing when I use the action skill. So that's what gave me the original idea for this, because using Phase Slam as often as you can will keep you getting healed all the time, because you're constantly pulsing healing from all the damage you're doing, and it should keep you alive when you're surrounded by enemies. However, it does not. But what makes this build work for me is this hot drop safeguard that I found. Now, the safeguard effect is whenever you use a normal slam, not the phase slam, but a normal slam, it gives you an incoming damage shield of 57%. Only for 5 seconds, but 57% is half the damage and then some that you're already taking. So that alone would reduce a lot of damage. Plus it has elemental resistance, just happened to be on there. Area of effect damage, slam and phase slam are both AoE damage, and cryo efficiency. Now we're going to go into the skill tree a little bit later, but this is a cryo focused build. So this was like a real miracle drop for me. I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this work. I use a Quasar. It also has action skill and cryo damage. The Quasar is my favorite grenade in this game, but I think a Singularity grenade might be a better choice in this slot, mostly because Quasars, they tend to throw your enemies all over the place. Singularities tend to bring them together a little bit better, so I might switch that up later. And the class mod is a golden rule. Whenever I'm damaged, I gain increased action skill cooldown rate, and you better believe you're gonna get damage. So I'm gonna get a lot of value out of that by itself. Fortunately, it also has weapon damage, Atlas weapon reload speed, which kind of synergizes with the Clockwork Res, and action skill damage. We're doing most of our damage with our action skill, so this is actually pretty great. And the 35% weapon damage is just a nice topping on the cake there. Alright, let's move on to the skill tree. So like I said before, it's a cryo-focused build. Now, Phase Flare is the ability you get as a Siren and this cryo skill tree, but we don't really use Phase Flare that much. We can use Phase Flare. Like I mentioned before, I have that Plague Bearer with the Orb Anoint that allows us to increase the damage of the ball, and that ball does some crazy damage by itself. So no mistakes in nature. Inflicts a status effect on the enemy, and I gain increased melee damage for a short time. So what this does is this whole build that I have, it joins together melee damage, slam damage, and phase slam damage to work together synergistically. So this increases our melee damage by 65%, which is pretty good, and whenever we inflict a status effect on an enemy. Here's the thing. I actually have 1 point here on this to synergize with it. Just an 8% chance whenever I apply a status effect to somebody else, there's a chance to spread. All just sort of works together to create more melee damage opportunities. And then I have Heavy Rain, because you have to have 5 points to move down a tier, another 5 points to move to this tier, and then I had to put 5 points here to get down to this tier so I could go all the way to the bottom. The capstone here is really important, by the way. So I put points here as well, increasing projectile speed and splash damage, which we're going to be doing a lot of splash damage with our grenade, with our slamming, with our face slamming, and so on and so forth. I put max points and go with the flow, because whenever I freeze an enemy, I gain movement speed and weapon damage. 21% extra weapon damage for 16 seconds. Not bad. And you will be freezing your enemies pretty often, so you're going to get a lot of utility out of that. Unweave the Rainbow. I deal bonus damage of my attuned element, which will be cryo, whenever I deal melee damage or splash damage to frozen enemies. Now, we're going to be freezing people pretty often, so I'm always going to get utility out of this as well. We skipped over a lot of the other stuff, because you're not going to be killing with melee. Having a skill that kills an enemy with melee attacks and giving you health back just really isn't going to work. It would be very situational, because most of the damage you do is slam and face slam. Combo Breaker, killing an enemy with melee damage, we're just not going to do it. Gain more melee damage after activating the action skill. This is a good choice, but I chose not to do it because I wanted to get this instead. Mostly because I play with friends, or I play with my wife. And so whenever I activate my action skill, I gain increased threat. Everyone's going to start shooting at me. When they shoot at me, I gain up to 15 stacks of 5% increased damage. So that's 50, it's almost 75% extra damage. I maxed out Atman, which increases our skill damage, which we're going to be using a lot with our face slam. And then Free the Soul. I read about this, and I honestly can't physically see it in battle, because there's so much shit on screen. But whenever I kill a frozen enemy, splinters fly out of that enemy and home to nearby enemies, dealing cryo damage. That skill has a short cooldown of only 3 seconds. So that's not bad. And then another kill skill, increasing our melee attacks deal bonus splash damage for a short time. So that's going to synergize up here with Heavy Rain, increasing our splash damage as well with 35%, plus another 1782 on top of that for 12 seconds. It's not much, but 3, 4, 5. 5 points. You go down the bottom where the capstone is, and this is going to make things a lot easier for us to kill things. After killing an enemy, Amara ignores enemies' elemental damage resistance for a short time. That's amazing. That means they just don't resist anything we hit them for, so they take the full damage. And so you punch, you shoot, you slam, or whatever you got, you'll hit full damage. It's really nice, great amount of utility there. And we're going to meld it together with our phase slam tree. So let's go back to the phase slam here. This is imperative. Clarity gives you health regeneration. The lower your health, the more powerful your regeneration. After using your action skill, that doubles. It's going to keep you alive. This is unavoidable. You have to have it. And then personal space gives you bonus damage depending on how close you are to the enemy. We're going to be very close to all of the enemies all the time. So that's going to help with our weapon damage. Slam-Ara, when you deal damage with your action skill, you add a stack, and we're going to be damaging a lot of people with our action skill all the time, multiply. So we're going to stack pretty often. For every stack, we gain increased gun damage and health regeneration. So maximum synergy there. Pretty good there. Fortunately, our class mod boosts Helping Hands. That was just a trick of the RNG. I got lucky with that class mod, but this gives us 51% damage reduction when after we use our action skill for 15 seconds. So for 15 seconds, we get 51%. If I slam, I get 57%. That's 108% damage reduction for 5 seconds. Because the class mod, sorry, not the class mod, the artifact gives us the 57% reduction for 5 seconds. Now, I don't know if they are additive or if it's something else where it's like 57% of the 51% damage remaining that I would take, because I'm not invincible, but for 5 seconds I'm damn hard to kill. So that synergizes perfectly with the hot drop safeguard. Now the safeguard is something you can get on any artifact. You don't have to have the hot drop safeguard. It could be something else that you like with the safeguard added to it. They're not too hard to find. I just got really lucky with the synergy on that. And this increases our melee damage, and after we use our action skill, we gain increased melee range. I chose this over Blitz. Blitz gives us a dash attack and a bonus to our melee damage that's pretty considerable, but remember, we're not going to be killing too many things with our melee damage, and Blitz kind of interferes with certain movement because it darts you straight towards an enemy. Sometimes you didn't want to go to that enemy, or sometimes you wanted to punch your phase flare ball, and you punch through the phase flare ball to hit the enemy on the other side, and then you just keep missing the phase flare ball. So I found it not to be as useful, but this gives us increased melee range. So while we're not dashing ahead, we are still punching further ahead than we were normally doing, and it's 100% melee damage on top of that. So we basically have everything this would give us. It would just not make us fly forward, if that makes some sense. And I put 1 point here in mindfulness because whenever we take damage, and we are going to take damage, we get increased shield regeneration delay and movement speed. These two things are not very important, but they can help. So I didn't want to totally commit to this. Sorry, actually, I only have 1 point in it because of the class mod. So I didn't commit anything to it. We just have that one free point. So let's move on down. One with nature, we gain increased max health and elemental damage resistance to our action skill element, which is cryo or whatever you happen to choose. But that's 15% extra health and 28% elemental damage reduction. That's also on top of how good this thing is. Elemental resistance of 30%. So 30% plus 28%, 58% elemental damage reduction. But that's only if we're being hit by cryo. Otherwise, it's a flat 30%. I didn't put full points in here either because I didn't want to spend too many points in this tree. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to continue as far down as I want in the blue tree. We'll get to that later. So right here, jab cross. This is another really important skill. I wanted to make sure I had it. Whenever we deal melee damage, we gain action skill damage and gun damage. So the way this is going to work is we're going to punch an enemy, and our action skill damage is going to get boosted by 75%, which our action skill is phase slam. So you punch an enemy, phase slam, boom, way more damage. The 15% gun damage is negligible. We're doing it for the action skill damage. And of course, Guardian Angel, we take this because Guardian Angel gives us a second chance at life when we inevitably die by being as reckless as possible. When we enter fight for our life, we immediately gain a second wind. We also create an action skill elemental nova on top of that, which may knock back enemies. The action skill nova will be another cryo nova, so it's pretty good. And I didn't find that do unto others did much. I mean, sometimes whenever I get hit, I'll throw a ball at somebody and it'll just do 24,000. I don't know if that scales or not, but I never saw it actually do more damage than, say, Free the Soul, which we're going to be using a lot more often because the cooldown's only 3 seconds. 3 seconds versus 8 seconds. You see, it's kind of like, same tier. This one's a little bit more effective. You can combine both of them if you had a spare point, and surely you're free to move any point anywhere you like out of this build and put it there. I'd be interested to know what the results were on that if you did do that. And then I put 5 points up here because we want to get down to the Ascendant. The Ascendant makes all of our augments just better in general. I'll get into that later. So I put 5 points into Do Harm because whenever I kill an enemy, get a stack of rush. Action skill, when I use my action skill, it consumes all the rush stacks and it makes action skill damage increase. So we get 4.5% extra action skill damage per stack of rush, we get max 10 rush stacks, and so that's like 45% extra damage if we kill 10 people, before using our action skill again. But that just as a passive boost to our damage. Then I put points into Restless to increase our action skill cooldown rate, because we want to use Face Slam as much as possible. While we're here, I'm going to cover Soul Sap, because I added this. A portion of all damage dealt by Amara's action skills return to her or nearby ally as health. Like I said, I play with my wife, so this helps her and I stay alive whenever I slam on something. And you're going to be taking so much damage, you might want to have something like this, or something that does crowd control, like Stillness of Mind, or whatever else you decide to use. So the reason we went down to Ascendant is because every action skill augment gains increased effects. And now Soul Sap lifesteal is not 30% of damage dealt, it's plus 20% for 50% of damage dealt. And we're going to be doing so much damage with Face Slam, it's insane. So it's an instant heal every single time you use your Face Slam. I'm not going to go down the rest of it because those are all very specific. This is what I use it for, is this. So there we go. And yeah, I think we covered in the red tree, but I'm going to just do it real quick again. Melee damage increase. This spreads status effects with an 8% chance, and this converts damage cryo into our normal damage. So every time we shoot, we'll always do some cryo damage. Now I want to use sustainment, but I just don't have 13 points to move. But if you can figure a way to do that, the lifesteal and elemental damage, that'll keep you alive pretty good too. So I believe we've covered the skill tree. Let's go check out how it actually works. Alright, welcome to Athenas. Just to showcase what we're doing difficulty-wise and give some legitimacy to the combat. I'll go to the Mayhem. Current level 11. It's currently active. Gives 10,000% health, shield, and armor to all of our enemies. I do have all of the bonus Guardian reward stuff on. I'm not going to turn that off. I'm used to having it on. If that makes this build not work, then just, play enough to unlock everything. Let's go on into the combat. So what we're going to try to do when we fight these enemies is we're going to try to punch, we're going to try to Quasar, we're going to try to slam, and we're going to try to Face Slam as much as possible. And have a good time doing it. I've been doing some Slaughter Shaft with this, and it's pretty great. Though it's a little difficult at the tanks and how they constantly have so much armor and health. So first, Hot Drop, Face Slam. Did. This build, you absolutely must look at the mini-map to see where you're going and where the enemies are. It's really hard not to. Now I am playing on a PS4. I'm normally playing on PC. PC makes it a lot easier to aim, of course. So if you see me flying wildly and shooting wildly, it's because analog sticks are difficult, and they always have been. That was Free the Soul, that little blue ice ball that was flying over there. That's the effect of Free the Soul. And you're going to want to use Face Slam as much as possible. But there's no cooldown to Face Slam, so that's not hard to do. But the reason you want to do that is because every 5 seconds, that safeguard bubble goes away. And you want to keep that up as much as possible. Plus the hot drop rockets, I didn't mention those, but the hot drop part of it does some insane damage. It's like 10 million at least, I think, for each of these, each of the fireballs. So you can actually kill with the hot drop part, and you can also kill with the Face Slam part. And then once you melee hit somebody, all of your kill skills and triggers and all that kind of stuff, all your abilities are basically unlocked. This is what I was talking about with the Hellwalker. The reload speed can be a problem. pissing and shitting. Yes, yes, I know. He burned to death. Oh, I forgot about the singularity grenade. We haven't been using that. Let's go ahead and use that now. Be very careful with barrels using a singularity grenade. Those barrels can deal a lot of damage. Don't forget you get 3 times damage on frozen targets that you melee, so if you can mop them up that way, it's a lot of fun. So we use the singularity grenade to bring enemies closer, and then we can hot drop or face slam as needed. And also keep an eye on the minimap, because when the red targets leave, that means you've killed the target, and you don't have to do a visual confirmation on the death. There's Guardian Angel being used. So we have 20 seconds before we can die safely again. Now the problem with Amara is I find that she doesn't have very good recovery if she does die, so the risk-reward factor is real on this build. Sometimes you might have to take a second to get your shields to get started. See what I mean, though? Hot drop hurts. Now, it might be because of the area of effect damage that's on the artifact. And I think that the damage pipeline might add that ability damage after the equation, if that makes any sense. Like when they calculate gun damage plus skill damage plus so and such, such and such. My ass, I don't actually know. I don't really understand the damage threshold, but or the damage formula, the pipeline as they call it. But I will say that the damage on Hot Drop seems to be pretty good for it to just be an artifact. Like it's a weapon unto itself. Going, and of course this skill build synergizes with things that are frozen solid, so it all works together. Throw a grenade, make sure everyone's meeting up. As they're already frozen, it's going to take all this damage. And rinse and repeat. So I think you're getting the idea of what this whole thing's about. The only thing that's difficult is that you really can't see any damage numbers with everything going on. But I know that when I fire at Handsome Jack, that guy was just like laying down frozen. When I fired Handsome Jack, post-action skill use, this Hellwalker can do almost 20 million damage a shot on a critical spot. But crits are a little hard to hit. Ooh! Is he dead? Is he dead? Oh, he's dead. Okay, but these guys aren't. Right. Let's gather them up. The singularity, I mean, the Quasar is not only good for gathering, but also great for crowd control when they start to tag up on you like that. You can throw it and they'll bring them all together, move them around a bit. It lowers damage over time being taken by you. I think I've killed everyone here. There's usually a group of enemies up this way. A couple of heavyweights, but maybe maybe they got sucked in with the Quasar and met their end. Pardon me while I get this. Almost there anyway. Pop! Against him. It doesn't do anything. Okay. It doesn't do anything. Oh, oops. This is, yeah, we'll just do this one. But first we have to wait for our action seal to come back. There we go. I don't know what happened there, to be honest. I should have still had my phase flare. It's like he ate it. So one of the weaknesses to this build is the fact that shields are not very well targeted. Shields are pretty good against fire. They're pretty good against radiation and corrosion. Not so good against normal bullets, and of course, shock weapon damage to shields. I see what happened. It's that wall. So with that wall being a problem, alright, let's try this one more time. Get that wall out of the way. And we can pull it in. Now every time you use phase flare, hit it once, twice, 3 times. There you go. So that's your boss killer. But we were having just a whole lot of logistics problems with that wall in the way. So this this is your boss killer. You can hit this thing 5 times before it actually explodes, and you can't use it anymore. But yeah, so that's basically it. And like I said, this gun here isn't imperative. You just want to have that anoint that allows your phase flare to do 200% damage. Yeah, 200% phase flare damage. So that when you punch, you bring it back in, and then you hit him again. Each time is multiplying damage with every punch. By the time you get that 4th one in there, you saw how fast his shield and health melted. You could pretty much kill any boss with this. So you have a bossing and you have a mobbing build right here, which is basically your full package. And so yeah, that's it basically. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you learned something, maybe inspired you to do something cool with your own builds. I'm glad to have been able to share it with you.